highlight a particular phrase. Maybe it will stick with you. Drishta vichar, changing the position of being the seer to being seen, that little dyad you did with one another, chanting to Krishna. And then Krishna's seeing you, so are you being attentive to Krishna? In a broader sense, a relationship where we're chanting and Krishna is the one being chanted unto, and we're establishing through that medium of service to Him, reawakening our relationship with Him. So now, intention while chanting. I noted, I don't know if it just caught my attention when Prema Tarangini was speaking before that little dyad that you did in the morning session. You're chanting to Krishna, that little experience. She mentioned something that even in the corporate world, there's ideas of establishing goals, and they got a nice little term, SMART goals. I don't know if you caught that. But that's what intention is. It's a goal. Or like before you had your Sankalpa exercise. Sankalpa is, one way of saying it is, what brought you here? When you came here, what was the purpose that you hoped to accomplish? That's your intention. And then take it in a bigger picture and call it life. I have this nice image I like that I use for presentation in colleges. It's over here is a child in the womb, birth, and over here is skeleton, death. So like a mountain and the valley in between the two mountains, that's called life. It's what happens in between birth and death. And there's a yogi or a person in a yoga posture looking at between birth and death. What's the meaning of life? What's supposed to go in there? So, a goal or a purpose or intention. So when chanting, what's our intention? Where does our consciousness go? If you recall, I was describing in the morning, when a crisis comes or reversal comes or something unexpected comes, it's really helpful to see where does your attention go, because your attention goes to where you're attached. And largely we're fruitive. So we start thinking like a solution to the problem. Immediately we go to, commonly anyway, solution to the problem. And one who is attached to Krishna, their attention immediately goes to Krishna, because He's the protector of His devotee. It's not like we're helpless, or we can't do, we're catatonic, we can't do anything. Like the classic example of a deer driving at night, and you see a deer in your headlights and the deer just freezes. You've heard that expression. Something comes in it, like a deer caught in the headlights. And then the deer gets hit by the car. So, Maharaj Ambarish, nice example. Savai Mana Krishna, Padaravindayo. What was his practice? He was such a super excellent, powerful king, but he was attached to Krishna. With fully purified mind and senses. In the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, there are 5 classes of devotees that attain Vaikuntha. or in some cases it's called 4.5. And Bharat Maharaj is a half, because he was a Jnana Bhakta. But above him is Maharaj Ambarish, because he's a Shuddha Bhakta. And he was a Shuddha Bhakta because his mind and senses were completely fixed in service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Savaimana Krishna Padara Vindayova Changsi Vaikanta Vanan. So Prabhupada quoted that verse over and over and over and over and over as example of sadhakas, like us, to practice bringing our mind to Krishna, engaging our senses, cleansing the temple with your hands and walking with your legs to go to the temple, and with your eyes seeing the deity form the temple, with your ears hearing the description of the personality of Godhead, and etc. Fully utilizing the senses in service to Krishna as a practice. But he wasn't just practiced, he was pure. He was beyond sadhana stage. He was pure in devotion. So he did the same thing that the sadhakas do, but the sadhakas are practicing, and he was in the perfect stage, Shuddha Bhakta. So when the calamity came his way, the fiery demon sent by Durvasa Muni to kill him, what did he do? In his mind, he completely accepted, I've offended Durvasa Muni, I accept. Similar to Maharaj Parikshit, I've offended the great sage Shamakrishi, I accept. But in his position, in Lord Brahma, when he had made this offense against Krishna's taking the calves and cowherd boys and put them in the cave, and he came back, and he knew he was going to get a reaction. So his prayer to Lord Krishna was, I accept whatever the reaction is. I'm not going to invest my conscience. This is intention. What should one's intention be when chanting? His prayer, which is a very famous prayer, I accept the reaction that's coming to me. I'm not going to invest my consciousness in neutralizing the reaction that's coming to me, because it's coming to me. I can try to be clever and do a workaround, or minimize or neutralize or do something to take care of, but I accept. I accept the responsibility of my past misdeeds, and I'm not going to invest consciousness there. I'm only going to invest consciousness in your 2 lotus feet. Let my mind not budge 1 inch from your 2 lotus feet. For by so doing, the verse says, I know that I will inherit the property of my father, who is Lord Vishnu, and the property of Lord Vishnu, his abode. So I'll attain the kingdom of God if I just fix my mind upon the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead. That was Lord Brahma. Now going backwards, there is Maharaj Ambarish, and going backwards, there's Maharaj Parikshit. This is the example of intention of great devotees. So, intention while chanting. There's a nice verse, famous verse, Canto 2, Chapter 3, text number 10, Akama, Sarvakama, Mokshakama, Udaradi Tivrena, Bhakti Yogena, Yajeta Purusham Param. Many of you know that verse. And if you stay around the Hare Krishna movement for a while, you'll all know the verse, because it's an often quoted verse. It gives 3 positions of intention, because these are categories. Sakama, or Sarvakama, Mokshakama, those that have all material desires, those that have desire for liberation, and Akama, those that don't have any desires. Well, that may be the desireless state of the impersonalist, isn't it? Impersonalists have an idea. It's not just like Mayavadis from, someplace in South India. Buddhism and practically Eastern philosophy, Eastern spiritual philosophy in general has this idea that desire implicates us in suffering. So there's this intention to become desireless. Desireless is defined in Buddhism as nirvana. Just like a little sidebar over here. I have an interest in helping what was called during Prabhupada's time the China Mission. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was given that service by Srila Prabhupada, and so he became known as the China Mission. And it was like, shh, don't talk about it because it's, it's the China Mission and we're not supposed to let, the government. So, but I'm speaking about people. There's presently, those of you that are involved with universities know what I'm about to say. The percentage of Chinese students in American universities today is flooding, and the flooding is swelling. Yes? Many. So reaching the Chinese students in universities in America, helping them to make the bridge from where they're coming from to understanding something of Vedic wisdom and bhakti and Krishna consciousness is something that I have an interest in. So I've been studying a little bit to help them, making presentations on Buddhism, which they're familiar with, and Buddha and Krishna, who they're not familiar with. But they're fascinated to hear that Buddha is an incarnation of Krishna. So, what's the goal of a Buddhist? Well, one of their goals is to become desireless, akama. It's really interesting. The most popular, there's like many forms of Buddhism, and then many divisions of those forms of Buddhism. You know how it goes. The modes of nature are very busy. They diversify everything that got it, in essence. So, but the most popular form of Buddhism has a certain name, and their teaching is, if you become a good follower of Buddhism, you go to a place that's called the land of pure bliss. And there's a particular form of Buddha who's there, who teaches you how to enter into nothingness. Nirvana. You can't go straight to nirvana, you got to go to, this abode, the land of pure bliss. And then you learn how to go to the place of nothingness. And that's the goal. And what's over here is actually nothingness. And in between, like the pit stop, the place where you fill your tank up, refuel, is the pure land of bliss. It's amazing. It's almost like, go to heaven and then beyond heaven is nothingness. Something like that. I don't get it. But that's their perspective. And the sense of it here, like it says, like Prabhupada writes in Bhagavad Gita, in his purport. What's the verse? One who can overcome Krishna. Forget the verse. Anger, fear, Vita raga bhaya krodha. There we go. Vita raga bhaya krodha. Krodha, anger. And Prabhupada writes that anger or frustration, the teachings of frustration are the teachings of impersonalism and voidism. Nirvana philosophy is born of frustration. That I tried to be an enjoyer, it didn't work. And now I want out of this place where I wanted to enjoy, but I didn't get to enjoy. So if you don't have, I'll say it slowly, if you don't have a personal conception, pause, that's the place that you deductively or by speculative process must go to. It's not this, so it must be not this. Definition by negation. It's not this, so it must be nothing. This is something, so we give up something to go to nothing, or nirvana, or voidism, or impersonalism. Born of frustration. So to become a devotee, that verse is teaching, one has to go beyond frustration into the realm of transcendence. So the chanting, the intention of chanting, is to go to the realm of transcendence, to the position of being Krishna's servant, through the medium of chanting, to enter into Vrindavan, our overall theme of the weekend. To enter into Vrindavan, to enter into Krishna's abode, to enter into our relationship with Krishna. It's letting go of this business, the false ego business we were speaking of this morning, of trying to be a competitor with Krishna, the enjoyer of Krishna's property, when we're not entitled to it, and instead taking up the position of being Krishna's servant. And chant with that intention. So in Jiva Goswami's commentary, his Sandarbhas, some of you know what the Sandarbhas are. Jiva Goswami wrote, we're followers of Rupa Goswami, and Jiva Goswami was one of his principal students. Jiva Goswami wrote 3 different commentaries on the Srimad Bhagavatam. He's one of my heroes. I mean, not just because he wrote so much, but his writings were brilliant. So like Prabhupada translated commentaries of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. Jiva Goswami wrote one of every verse in the Bhagavatam. Then he wrote another one that's just a commentary on the 10th canto, a second one. Then a third commentary was a commentary on the themes of Srimad Bhagavatam, called the Sandarbhas. He liked Srimad Bhagavatam very much, and the followers of Lord Chaitanya liked Srimad Bhagavatam very much. And so one of those Sandarbhas, in Bhakti Sandarbha, he describes devotion that's unmixed, or that's free from material desire. And the Sanskrit phrase is bhajaniya. This is found in that 2.3.10 purport, Bhagavatam. Bhajaniya, like we say kirtaniya, sadahari. Bhajaniya, parama purusha, that's like Krishna, parama purusha. Bhajaniya parama purusha, sukha, happiness, matva, sva sukhatvam, that one's own happiness is Krishna's happiness. And that's the position of desirelessness and devotion. Bhajaniya parama purusha, sukha matra, sva sukhatvam. Sva sukhatvam. Having the quality of one's own happiness, of Krishna's own happiness, that's my happiness. If I define my happiness in terms of Krishna's happiness, that's desirelessness. If you remember from this morning, I mentioned, or we read, what Sudama expressed as his intention or his, what he was carrying inside his heart, his devotion towards Krishna. I'll mention this again at the end. You'll see there's a theme to all of this. There's a plot here, and there's a theme to the plot. To try to carry, through the messages of the Bhagavatam, to carry us to chanting purely. That's the plot. So the theme to the plot is he expressed desire for three things. His intention was life after life, devotional service to the personality of Godhead. And second, association of his devotees. And the third was sympathy. Remember that from this morning? Sympathy. And one sympathy is there's someone that's in an unfortunate circumstance and you feel sympathy for them. This is another kind because Krishna is not unfortunate, we're unfortunate. Sympathy is as he feels, we feel. Let thy will be mine. Love, the will of the beloved is let that be my will. That's love. Let me be situated in that. Whatever it is that Krishna wants, that's what I want. Now that's not where we are. Where we are is, we want something and just see if it can match with what Krishna wants. It's called the dovetail. It's Bhaktisiddhanta's language. Even Lord Brahma had such a desire to create a universe. Even after all of his wonderful, again, Brahma Samhita, after all of his wonderful realizations of the personality of Godhead, because he was so fixed in his devotion to the personality of Godhead, the whole spiritual world was revealed to him, and the relation of all things unto Krishna was revealed to him. He still had this desire to create. Fortunately, it was Krishna's desire that he create. So he was doing for Krishna. So that's our position. We're not in this akama yet. But we can cultivate that. That's also an intention. We're here, the goal is here, and I can take steps towards reaching the goal. That's intention. This is Rupa Goswami's definition of bhakti. What's the Sanskrit? Anyavilasha tushanyam jnana karmadya navratam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhaktiruttama. So a key word in that definition of bhakti is anushilana. Anu means to follow, and shilana or shila means activity or behavior. Like, you have a course here in Seattle, Vaishnava etiquette course. You call it something else, but it's a Vaishnava etiquette course. So what is Vaishnava behavior is the topic. So Shila means behavior. Anushilana is cultivating. So if you read very carefully, I'm sure you read very carefully. When you read very carefully in the introduction to Nectar Devotion, you'll find this word about 5 or 6 times, cultivation. Bhakti is a sort of cultivation, right? Does it resonate? You with me? That's anushilana. It's Prabhupada's way of making it really easy without giving the Sanskrit. It's a sort of cultivation. We're down here, the goal is up here, and we cultivate. That's an intention. We're chanting. Tomorrow we'll all be chanting 64 rounds or maybe more. Maybe some of the children will be out in the grounds playing and they won't be, but many of us will be. So while chanting, there should be some intention. And the intention is not let the bell ring when I hit 64. But it's something that's going to help us get to that position is what's inside. The purpose for which we want to chant 64 rounds or to chant the holy name at all. It's like a lens. like a magnifying lens that you take the light of the sun and pass the light of the sun through a magnifying glass at a right angle, at the proper angle, and focus the light of the sun through the magnifying glass on something that can burn, a piece of paper or wood or something, and it becomes hot, 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 and it'll burst into flames, because that's what the sun is. It's fire. Over here, it's just sunlight, but pass it through the magnifying glass at the right angle, it's fire. It's fire. It's fire. It's fire. The holy name is also completely pure. Our consciousness over here is wood-like. We have to pass it through this magnifying glass at the right angle, and it becomes purifying, or the intensity of purification becomes stronger through our intention. So intention is a sankalpa, or intention is a very important thing. Let's give some scriptural examples of how this intention thing works. Classic of Sarvakama or Sakama is Dhruva Maharaj. Yes? He was just a little boy. He was insulted by his stepmother. He wanted to get back at his stepmother and his father for not protecting him. So he was in this little Kshatriya boy mood, and he wanted a kingdom better than his father and better than his father's father's father. I'm going to get that kingdom. So it was Sakama. And his mother rightly said, the only way I know that's possible is Lord Vishnu. If you get the favor of Lord Vishnu, anything can happen. So Dhruva was responding by saying, very well, where do I find Lord Vishnu? And his mother said, I don't know, I'm just living here in the palace. I don't know how to find Lord Vishnu, but I hear the sages, they go to the forest. Somehow they find Lord Vishnu. So it was, okay, see you later, Mom, I'm going to the forest to find Lord Vishnu. And he couldn't find Lord Vishnu. He found lots of trees and, butterflies and some insects and wild animals, but he didn't find Vishnu. But he found he found Narada. Narada found him. And by the mercy of Narada, who knows how to take one from Sakama to Nishkama, he gave him the means. Because only by Nishkama can one achieve bhakti, can achieve Lord Vishnu. So we're in that situation. We're mixed devotion, with some desire for things of this world and some desire for transcendental attainment. So we require the sending mercy of one who's carrying bhakti, or the representative of disciplic succession, in order to come to that nishkam position. And a very strong, not just like some mercy and then, okay, now we're ready. We're in nishkam bhaktas. There's some effort needed on our part, on our side, from our side, to receive the mercy and to act upon it, to carry out the service that's given. That's exactly what Dhruva did. And Dhruva got on the other side. He went from Sakama to Nishkam Bhakti through Tivra Bhakti. So that's the verse, right? Akama sarva kama va moksha kama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Through Tivra Bhakti, one can come to that position. So Dhruva did it. I mean, he applied himself. The mercy that he got, he applied with great enthusiasm, like pretty exceptional enthusiasm. Great austerity he underwent, austerities we can't even think of doing. Like this morning we spoke about Lord Brahma and what austerities he underwent in order to achieve the same position of perfection in spiritual life. We can't do what Brahma did. We can't do what Dhruva did. But we can do what the members of our disciplic succession are providing for us, particularly Lord Chaitanya and his associates. To cultivate anushilana, to cultivate the position of devotion that's without material desire for either fruitive activities or mental speculation. That's the verse. Anyavilashata shunyam. Avilash means desire. Anya avilash means other desire. And shunya means zippo. No other desire. Then it's specific. Which other desire? Jnana and karma. Those two. Well, that takes care of material life. Then what's left? What's left is spiritual life. Anukalyena Krishna Anushilana Bhaktir Uttama. So there's Dhruva Maharaj, where his intention was get a kingdom, a big one. And he got on the other side of get a big kingdom through the association of Narada and Tivra Bhakti. Now, here's another scriptural example of intention. This is from Canto 4, Chapter 1. It's the lineages of kings and great sages following Lord Brahma. It's still following the process of creation from the third canto. So the sub-creation is populating this big thing that Brahma created called the universe with Praja. So he's the chief Prajapati, and he had other Prajapatis assist him, and one of those was Atri Muni. Atri was one of his direct sons, and Atri was married to Anasuya. So this is Satya Yuga, and they did something very similar to Dhruva. Their intention wasn't get a kingdom. Their intention was fulfill the instruction of Lord Brahma, which was to help populate the universe with qualified living entities. So what did they do? Very similar thing. Next week is Pandava Nirjala Ekadasi, right? Wednesday? So some of us will undergo Pandava Nirjala Ekadasi without taking any water. Here's the austerity that Atri and Anasuya did. Their only substance was air for 100 years. So when you're observing Pandava Nirjala Ekadasi next week, think, whew, piece of cake compared to what Anasuya and Atri did. But they, like Dhruva, not just, they underwent severe austerity. And they were standing on one leg. I don't know what, the thing is. We had, there was one man that used to come to our temple. Now he goes to some other temple, but he used to come to our temple and stand before the deities like Dhruva Maharaj on one leg. Would put his hands like this. I thought he was like practicing acrobatics or something. I asked him, why do you do that? Well, this is the practice that Dhruva did, standing on one leg and taking darshan of the deity. That's not for us. That's Satya Yuga and qualified persons that have that capacity to only take air for 100 years and so on. Dhruva did it much shorter period of time, but it was similarly very intense. And they fixed their mind upon the personality of Godhead. But they didn't specify who is the personality of Godhead. This is at the very beginning of creation, and although Brahma is their father, apparently they didn't do all their Gurukul lessons or something, because they didn't have a clear indication in their in their intention who. So after 100 years, Lord Vishnu, Lord Brahma, and Lord Shiva, all three of them appeared. And it's described he kind of hopped over to them on one leg, Atri, and then with his hands folded offered prayers, and then he fell to the ground before them like a rod, dandavat, and stood before them. And the three of them said, you've pleased us very much by your devotion. And I want to read the verse. 4:130, Srimad Bhagavatam. Here's what the three of them, like a trio, they spoke all at the same time or something. 4:130, they said, the three deities told Atri Muni, "Dear Brahmana, you are perfect in your sankalpa." That's the very word used in the verse, 4:130. Exactly on the topic. Your intention, your determination, because like the magnifying glass, it helps focus the purpose for which you're doing what you're doing. We're here to chant with a particular sankalpa, intention or focus or purpose. And that makes you more determined. Say it the opposite. If you don't have a clear sense of purpose, it may be a struggle for you tomorrow. So prepare yourselves by having a clear sense of purpose or intention or sankalpa. So we've been trying to equip you with some things that will be supportive tools for you tomorrow, like where your consciousness should go. Now, the sense of intention. Dear Brahmana, you are perfect in your determination, and therefore, as you have decided, so it will happen. It will not happen otherwise. We are the same person upon whom you were meditating, and therefore, we all have come to you. The purport Prabhupada says, Atri wasn't specific. It's a little bit like Gajendra Moksha. You're familiar with that pastime? Bhagavatam. When he was in his previous birth as King Indradumna, he chanted certain stotras. So Prabhupada recommends chant certain stotras regularly, just in case you might become an elephant in your next life, or you may remember those stotras as Gajendra did. But when he was King Indradumna, he was a Vishnu Bhakta, but when he was Gajendra, his intention, who he was meaning, wasn't clear. But Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma didn't come because they knew, although he wasn't explicitly saying the name of Lord Vishnu, they knew his intention, so Lord Vishnu came. Here, Atri wasn't specific, nor did he have a clear idea, apparently. That's what Prabhupada writes in his purport. Therefore, all three came. And see if I can find it specifically in the purport. One's determination is fulfilled according to the strength of one's devotion. Prabhupada is using this word determination interchangeable with sankalpa, or the word in the verse is sankalpa. And the word for word, it's determination. So in the purport, one's determination, like, chanting 64 rounds, it takes some determination to do that. Of course, it can be lots of fun, but even, that requires determination, because you could think of 10,000 other things to do, and your mind may propose a good number of them tomorrow while you're chanting your 64 rounds. Something, or 10-somethings, or 50-somethings. Once you open the door, the mind gets crowded with so many things to do. Yes? Have you had the experience? You take, okay, I'm going to take a little break. And wow, there's so many things to do. Too many things to do. And it's life, that in space in between birth and death, and life gets filled up. We get so busy we don't know if we have time. Prabhupada writes it in Ishopanishad. We sometimes ask people, please come to our gatherings. Oh, I don't have time. You've had the experience? I don't have time. And it's true, they don't have time. Because their life is filled up to the limit with so much to do, they don't have time. But if the intention changes, there's time. It's really cool. It's a miracle. It's Krishna's energy acting differently according to how you regard Krishna. Isn't there a verse in Bhagavad Gita like that? Yayatam mam prapadyante tangstataiva bhajamyaham. As they regard me, I reciprocate accordingly. If you're too busy for Krishna, he'll give you so much to do you don't have time for Krishna. But if you turn your attention, remember for this, turning your back and turning your face to Krishna. If you turn your attention to Krishna, his energy works in such a way, there's time. Here we are. We came, some distance to come here. And here we are. The time is there if we wish to be with Krishna. So here we are. So give your maximum effort of attention giving to Krishna. And he's going to be there whether you do that or not. And if you do that, you'll have one experience. If you don't, you'll have another experience. Of course, it's all in Krishna's hand. He's the supreme controller, and he can engage us however he wishes, and he will. But relationship-wise, if we give our intention fully to the personality of Godhead, then if we're very clear what our intention is, the reciprocation will be there. So with Atri, the three lords said, so be it, tatastu, and they disappeared. And they had three sons, Dattatreya, Soma, and Durvasa Muni, the son of Atri and Anasuya. They're partial incarnations of Lord Shiva, Durvasa, partial incarnation. A partial incarnation of Lord Brahma as Soma, and an incarnation of Vishnu, Dattatreya. It's also said partial, but he's a plenary portion. He's Vishnu Tattva, Dattatreya. So the topic again is intention while chanting. So if you're very clear, it's like the magnifying glass. If you're very clear what your objective is, you want the light that's coming through from the sun through the magnifying glass onto the, let's say, piece of paper. You want to burn a hole in the piece of paper. Your intention is clear. You just hold it at the right angle. You have to be very clear what your intention is, because the light of the sun is already there. At least now it is. And you're clear what your intention is, the more focused, the stronger your determination, the more you're going to get the result. So what is Prabhupada? I'll read it again. Prabhupada writes, one's determination is fulfilled according to the strength of one's devotion. And now what's this devotion? Devotion is unmixed, isn't it? That's what Rupa Goswami says, unmixed. Anya avilash shunyam, no mix of jnana or karma, no mix. Completely focused upon the personality of Godhead. Completely focused upon the personality of Godhead. Or striving for that at least. We'll have the opportunity tomorrow, 64 rounds. Sometimes you'll be more focused. Most likely, sometimes they'll be less focused than other times. And then what's the task? Become more focused. Just, continue to adjust the angle of the magnifying glass, the intention, through the strength of devotion. The strength of devotion. The wishing to please Krishna. So, bhajaniya, parama purusha. This is Jiva Goswami's definition of unmixed devotion or desirelessness in devotion. bhajaniya paramapurusha sukhamatva sva sukhatvam. Krishna's happy. So, like that dyad that we did earlier. Chant for Krishna's pleasure. Knowing that Krishna is hearing, besides the fact that his name is none different than him, he's hearing. And he's present through that sound. But he's hearing in his personal feature, besides his swarup, besides his namarup, he's hearing and he's reciprocating. And he's feeling obliged. I must give protection to my devotee. Krishna, please uproot false ego from my heart. The intention of trying to enjoy separately from you. Please let my intention be exclusively your happiness. That's this sympathy notion expressed by Sudama. In Bhagavad Gita, there's the verse that says 4 types of pious people render service unto me. Bhagavad Gita 7:16. Chaturvidha bhajante mam jana sukritanorjana. This is another verse that's describing intention. Who are those people that render devotional service unto me? In categories 4. This intention, that intention, the other intention. So they're suffering. They want relief from their suffering. They have economic difficulty. They pray to God for approach God to serve Him for relief of their economic difficulty. They may be just curious or inquisitive. And some are searching for knowledge. But I want. Some desire. It's all of them, all 4 of them are sakkama. And that's every one of us. I mean, it's everybody comes to devotional service initially with sakkama. And we're trying to change a little bit the intention from Krishna, you're my order supplier. I've got this nice long list, inventory list of things I want fulfilled, and you have a really big warehouse. Please fulfill this order. Thank you. I'm chanting. And you have a big warehouse. At least some of them. Like, this is my priority ones over here, and lesser ones. And by the way, they're nice too. ABC list. So to move from that position to the second one is the best one. The first one was pretty good, though. That sound vibration was made for brahmacharis. And sannyasis. So how does one go from the sakkam to the nishkam position? Dhruva is the example. Association of one who has bhakti. Moksha kama is not the option that we're talking about. I want out of here. Let me out of this suffering condition. The nirvana position or the shunyavad, mayavad position. Not that alternative, but the nishkam bhakti. Desireless devotion to Krishna. It's the association of one who has that quality, or in the line of those who have that quality. And then the other is submission, like Dhruva. He was so, this is very important in the whole Dhruva Leela. He not only got what he wanted from Narada, like the means to find Vishnu, but he realized how kind was Dhruva to give that to him. That was a seed. This seed of gratitude toward Narada grew and grew and grew and grew, and it displaced the Sakama position. That seed of gratitude of what he had received from Narada, as he circumambulated Narada 3 times, feeling so grateful for what Narada had given him, because he didn't have to. He gave him all these, go back home, where you grow up, give up this mentality of get back mentality. It's not how you're going to find Vishnu. And, it's not becoming of one who's an elevated associate of Lord Vishnu. He just could have said no, but he didn't. He gave him the means. So he was his gratitude towards Narada was the seed of his Nishkam Bhakti. So from those 4, same for us, the 4 kinds of intentions or motivations or desires for devotional service, it will remain in this unsteady position, intermittent position. The word in Sanskrit is anishtata bhakti, unsteady devotion. The opposite is nishtha. You familiar with that phrase? One of the stages of bhakti. Following anartha vritti is nishtha, and before it is anishtata. Unsteady becomes steady when impurities are removed. How are you going to remove impurities? We heard this morning, Krishna intervenes. And he intervenes through representatives, his agents, his deputed associates, and they act as instruments of him to help us become free from our false shelters and our false expectations for happiness and fruitive activities. It's a loser. It's a position of suffering, not a position of happiness. We want happiness. Instead, we get misery. Yehi samsparsha ja bhoga dukha yonaya evate. It's right in Bhagavad Gita. But, we're donkeys. Our tendency is to be donkey-like. Just keep trying for sense enjoyment, trying for happiness through fruitive activities, trying to find happiness in temporary things that are all going to be disappointing us, and we keep trying it and trying it, lifetime after lifetime. How many lifetimes have we been through this? Probably a bunch of lifetimes. We added up the number of lifetimes together of everybody here in this room. Probably a lot of lifetimes, and we didn't finish. Here we are again. So let's try to finish and come to this position of nishkam bhakti. Strive, cultivate, anushilana, have that intention through your chanting tomorrow. Krishna, help make my heart pure. So Sudama, again making reference, Sudama had these were his intentions or sankalpas, stated explicitly in the verses that we read earlier today. Exclusive devotion for the personality of Godhead, lifetime after lifetime, just serving him lovingly. Having the association of his similar-minded loving devotees who will help fix that consciousness of devotion in him. And the third was this sympathy. Maitri is the Sanskrit word used. Maitri, sympathy. Almost the same 3 things. Slightly different, but almost the same 3 things are found in 2 other places in the Bhagavatam, with Maharaj Parikshit, Canto 1, Chapter 19, where he's speaking to the brahmanas who have come after he's been cursed to die from a bite of a snake bird. So he gives up his kingdom and sits by the bank of the Saraswati River, and they come. Not Saraswati, it's Ganges. So he sits by the side of the river Ganges, and the sages come, and he's offering this request. He said there are two things that could happen. He could go back to Godhead, or he could take birth again. He said, my mind is completely fixed. I'm ready. Please just describe the glories of Lord Vishnu so I can continue to keep my mind fixed on him. But if it's the Lord's desire that I take birth again, then I ask for these 3 benedictions. Same 3. Unalloyed devotion to Lord Vishnu, to the personality of Godhead. Lord Krishna, personality of Godhead. The association of his devotees, always. And a friendly disposition towards all living entities. Bhoktaram Jagatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suradam Sarvabhutanam. This is sympathy with the Lord's intention as the well-wisher. Let me also be the well-wisher of others. And there's another almost the same set from Sudama the florist, where he made this request of Krishna. You please me very much by your devotion. Please request a benediction. That was his request. Same 3. Only in his case was compassion for all living entities. So, intention, when we're engaged in devotional service, specifically the intention with which we chant the holy name is going to fill the intention of our lives, the space between birth and death, called life. And what the intention is, what the purpose of our life is, will be best accomplished if we have a very clear sense of intention when chanting Krishna's holy name. Like, this is preparing you for tomorrow's 64-round day. So another scriptural example, a very nice one, comes in the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam. And in one sense, the Bhagavatam could end with chapter 6, because in the 12th canto, chapter 6, the snake bird comes. Actually, in chapter 5, after the whole of the 10th canto, the 9 cantos, the 10th canto, Krishna is speaking to Uddhava Gita in the 11th canto. Shukadeva Goswami starts speaking Gyan. And Maharaj Parikshit becomes unhappy with him. But he's fixed in his Krishna consciousness. He absorbs his mind in the personality of Godhead. The snake bird, he enters into a state of trance, and he leaves his body, the way it's described in the commentary. He gives up voluntarily, like Bhishma Dev. He gives up his body before the snake bird comes. He gives up his body and goes back to Godhead, and completely absorbed in Krishna. Then the snake bird comes. It's kind of like the elder son, igniting the body of the father in the funeral. The snake bird comes and this body bursts into flames, but the body is already absent. The spirit soul has gone to Krishna. The Bhagavatam could end right there. But the sages, they want to continue hearing Srimad Bhagavatam because they're hearing something that happened earlier in time. So they continue asking questions about the composition of the Vedas. They speak of the composition of various Puranas and spend some time on Markandeya Purana, one of the Puranas. And then they start asking some more questions about Markandeya, because he was also pure in his devotion. So, to oblige, Sutta Goswami continues speaking, kind of like what the first canto is. Sutta Goswami is continuing to speak after Maharaj Parikshit has already left, and Shukadeva Goswami left. But the Bhagavatam narration continues discussing Markandeya Rishi. So Markandeya Rishi was the son of Mrikandu Rishi. Mrikandu Rishi was a Brahmana who was a great devotee of Lord Shiva, and very severe austerities Markandu Rishi underwent in order to please Lord Shiva to receive a good son. We keep hearing this, right? Like people who want good sons, they undergo austerities before they try to conceive a child. There's a message here about receiving good praja. In any case, Lord Shiva appeared, which was very astounding. Markandu Rishi was asking for a son, and instead Lord Shiva appeared. And Lord Shiva gave him two options. You can have either A or B. You can have a son who will live a long time, but he won't be a very good quality son. Won't be well educated and influenced by lower modes of nature. Or you can have a very qualified son, exceptionally qualified son, but he'll live only for 16 years. So he took option B. And Markandeya Rishi was born. And when the boy was growing up, he was an ideal son. And when he reached 16 years of age, the parents were sobbing. And Markandeya Rishi was asking them, "Why are you crying?" And they told him why. Because Lord Shiva said, when you reach 16 years of age, at that time, you'll leave us. And just as he was speaking, Yamaraj came, the Lord of Death. And nobody screamed. But Lord Shiva came. And Lord Shiva killed the Lord of Death. But it wasn't over because then someone else placed Lord of Death. And Lord Shiva gave a benediction. This son will live a fabulously long duration. Billions of years. Note that means many days of Lord Brahma, which sounds like fantastic. A perfect life of many days of Lord Brahma. But there's a problem, because the night of Lord Brahma follows his day. And during the night of Brahma, there's devastation. And if you live during devastation, it can be very problematic. So there's one version that says he lived, through nights of the nights of Brahma, or in the ocean of devastation. The Bhagavatam version says that Lord Narayan came. No, excuse me. He went back to performing his perfect meditation for long duration from a 16-year-old boy, from millions. Note that it was several billion years that he lived, for millions of years in perfect devotion to the personality of Godhead, seeing just as is described in scriptures, that everything is the emanation of the personality of Godhead. Imagine what that experience would be like times millions of years. Indra started getting worried. He had that pause that hits him sometimes. Maybe he's trying to take over my kingdom. So he sent Kamadev, along with many beautiful damsels, and Kamadev was firing arrows to disturb the meditation of Markandeya Rishi. And nothing happened. Nothing happened. Then he realized, I did it again. And he offered his apologies and prayers to Markandeya Rishi, understanding how exalted was Markandeya Rishi. And Indra departed, but being so pleased by the fixed consciousness of Markandeya Rishi, Narayan, an incarnation of the personality of Godhead, Krishna and Arjuna, appeared. And Markandeya Rishi offered his obeisances, and they offered him benediction, his intention. He said, Markandeya Rishi said, "Just seeing you is the perfection of my eyes, the perfection of my life, between birth and death is life. It's the perfection of my life. But because I'm accustomed to seeing everything in relation to Lord Vishnu, I request that you show me what is that feature where you don't see things in relation to Lord Vishnu. Like your feature of Maya. Because that's what Maya is. Not seeing things in relation to Lord Vishnu. Seeing things in an illusory way. Seeing what is not. So Narayan Rishi smiled. And then the show began. The show of Maya. You know, all this, very quickly, the symptoms of cosmic annihilation, which the partial annihilation which comes at the end of the day of Brahma, or during the night of Lord Brahma. Total inundation, flooding of the whole universe, so much so that everything was engulfed in water, except for one thing, Markandeya Rishi, because he had this benediction from Lord Shiva that he would live for a long duration, or that Narayan was simply showing his illusory energy. And there's like all this detailed description of what it's like to be in the ocean of devastation. Huge waves crashing. And even if you're a good swimmer, what are you going to do? It's not like, here comes this huge wave after wave after wave after wave and after wave after wave, and for millions of years. And he couldn't even not live. He couldn't drown. He had this benediction to live. And then he saw an island. And he moved toward the island, and beneath the island he saw baby Krishna lying on his back. You know this narration. And in his little baby-like form, he was sucking his toe. And then he looked out of the corner of his eye and he saw Markandeya Rishi and smiled. And all of his fatigue and his anxiety and everything just went away, just at the glance of Krishna, because Krishna's glance is very powerful. And then he inhaled. And the entire water of devastation entered into the body of baby Krishna. We can't do that. Try it. Into the mouth of Krishna went everything, because everything is within Krishna. And then he was inside the body of Krishna, seeing everything, including himself inside the body of Krishna. Like Mother Jasoda looking inside Krishna's mouth. She saw everything. Only he's inside the body of Krishna's mouth, or inside the Krishna's body by being his inhaling. And then he exhaled. And everything came out of his body again, and there he is in the water of devastation. And then next thing he knew, he's breathlessly sitting in meditation at his hermitage, at his little cottage by the side of the river. And then he realized, I asked for it, I got to see the illusory energy of the Lord, his feature of Maya. That which appears to be, but which is only temporary. However long, whatever the cycle of time is, maybe a big, maybe a medium, maybe a little, maybe just like whatever it is, time is moving the illusory energy. And time is Krishna, or Krishna's energy. Again, Brahma Samhita, wait till you hear this description in November, about the time energy moving Pradhan. And thus the whole creation comes into being, and then when that time energy is withdrawn, the universe is annihilated. So the illusory energy moves by the force of Krishna's time energy. So here's Markandeya Rishi by his hermitage, like panting because he's been swimming in the ocean of devastation for this long time, although it never happened. Like all the events of material life, there's in the time stress management class that I present, I've been asked at times, Maharaj, can you teach a course on stress management? I said, I'll do it if I can do it. Stress management, a spiritual approach. So I teach that at different places. So one of the slides is Mark Twain. He's not like a really famous person, but he said, many calamities I've experienced in my life, but fortunately most of them never happened. Because many of the stresses that we have is simply within our mind. When you read Uddhava Gita, 11th canto, there's one whole chapter dedicated to this same message, where Uddhava asks Krishna, what's the root cause of suffering? So the chapter is called the Avanti Brahman. In the Avanti, it's a whole story. Krishna tells the whole story of the life of the Avanti Brahman. The punchline is, the root of suffering is in the mind. If your mind, now we'll go back to intention, if your intention is to be with Krishna, Krishna can do whatever he likes. Isn't that what Lord Chaitanya teaches? Aslishyava pada. So you can embrace me, you can neglect me, you can trample me with your feet, you can do whatever you like. There's just one thing I wish, may just be fixed in your devotional service. May it just simply be attached to you. This bhajaniya parama purusha, sukhamatra swasukhatvam. May I come to that position of desirelessness in your devotion. Let me simply chant, like Prabhupada said, what is the goal of chanting? More chanting. Kirtaniya sadahari. The goal of chanting is chanting. The goal of chanting is to be with Krishna. With that intention, that my relationship with Krishna be strengthened, where other things have their place, along with the illusory energy of the Supreme Lord. And unless there's something that's in connection with Krishna, then that's very significant. I have to serve the devotees, I have to go cook the offering, or I have to go cut the vegetables or clean the pots. And you all may have some services to do tomorrow. But the goal is the relationship with Krishna goal. And the main medium for that is the medium of the sound of Krishna's holy name. So I want to end with Markandeya Rishi. After he's back at his cottage, realizing, as he had desired Narayan Rishi, what is the illusory energy? Who should come but Lord Shiva and Parvati, who the worshipable deity of his father. And Lord Shiva and Parvati, they're very pleased. He sees, Markandeya Rishi doesn't see Lord Shiva as, he sees him as the greatest of devotees of Lord Vishnu. Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu, like that. He sees Lord Shiva in relation to his position as a devotee of Lord Vishnu. So Lord Shiva comes, and he's very pleased and offers a benediction. So now he has this other sankalpa opportunity. Actually, every moment of our life, we have free will, and we can exercise it. We do exercise it this way or that way, or mix. We have the opportunity every moment. So here's what Markandeya Rishi said to Lord Shiva, who offered him, whatever sankalpa you wish, it's yours. Here it is. I do request one benediction from you. First he says, seeing you, that's sufficient. But same as he said to Narayan Rishi, seeing you is sufficient. There he said, let me see your feature of mind. He didn't ask for that one again. Here's what he asked for. You who are full in all perfection and able to shower down the fulfillment of all desires, I ask to have unflinching devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead and for his dedicated devotees. Bhagavati Achutam Bhaktim. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Ahaituki Bhakti. Unmixed devotion to the personality of Godhead. So he lived for another several billion years in unmixed devotion to the personality of Godhead. Because great devotees like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma or members of their disciplic succession and in their mood and role as Vaishnavas, they want to give the fulfillment of that. Lord Chaitanya is the personality of Godhead, Krishna himself, who wants to give the fulfillment of not just unflinching devotion, but braja prema. That's our prayer when we offer bhoga to our deities in the temple or in our homes. We offer a prayer to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Namo Mahavadanyaya, Krishna Prema Pradayate, Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya, Namne Gora Trishe Namaha. We say that he's the most munificent. Rupa Goswami addresses him as the most munificent. Why? Because he's giving what no other incarnation ever offered before. Other incarnations offer love of God, but he's offering Braja Prem, entrance into Vrindavan. That's the theme, if you remember from our opening remarks. Taking you all to Vrindavan, at least preparing you to enter into Vrindavan. That requires the mercy of the residents of Vrindavan to enter into Vrindavan. It requires this, at least the aspiration for Vraja Prem through that association, through their very kind mercy. So we're far from being qualified. That's our qualification. We're the most fallen. And we're the candidates for Lord Chaitanya's special mercy for that reason. He's Patita Pavana. He's merciful upon even the most fallen. It's not like you have to be the most fallen. But he's merciful upon everyone, even the most fallen. Even we have no qualification. We have no qualification except that we're insignificant. And we're fit candidates. Rupa and Sanatan made this argument with Lord Chaitanya. We're most qualified to receive your mercy because we're most fallen. We're eligible. We're candidates. Here's our application for your mercy. We're fallen. We're eligible candidates for your mercy. So you don't have to be a great something or other or somebody or other. You just have to be desirous, this intention of coming to the stage that these great personalities are indicating in their lives. The Bhagavatam is giving that message to us to help us see what the goal is, like in between birth and death, what's supposed to go in there, called life. And so we may be way on the fallen side. That's okay, you're eligible, especially because of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. Take that mercy and cultivate anushilana, cultivate following the teachings of Rupa Goswami. Study them carefully. There's so many courses and seminars and ways of instructing us in what Rupa Goswami's teachings are. Of the 4 books of the Bhakti Shastri, 2 of them are Rupa Goswami. Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotion. And we study them so that we can know what should be our intention, our cultivation, while chanting the holy name, the prime benediction for us to come to the stage of the purpose of life. Stay in your situation. This is the final. When Lord Chaitanya met with Ramananda Roy, there are 5 sections of Chaitanya Charitamrita that make up the principal teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Prabhupada translated that book, or wrote the book, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, very early in the Hare Krishna movement. And there's 5 parts. Lord Chaitanya's teachings to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, his teaching to Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, and especially his teaching to Ramananda Roy. That section is the most elevated. And it begins with this topic. What's the goal of life? And how to achieve it. What's the ultimate goal of life? And how to achieve it. So we're far from ultimate anything. But we should know what the goal is, and following Rupa Goswami strive to achieve it. And this is a great opportunity through this Japa retreat, through the prime benediction for all humanity at large, the chanting of the holy name, to enter into the chanting of the holy name with the right purpose or intention. And during the course of the day, you may have to adjust the magnifying glass a little bit. The sun may move, or your hand may move, your mind may move. So go back and fix the magnifying glass. Your reconnect with your sankalpa, or any of these other messages that you've been hearing, and do a reset. Bring your mind to not only the activity, but the purpose for which the activity is intended, to bring you to Krishna. I think you'll find a lot of assistance in that. So we'll take some time for some questions or comments. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj, for this session. But it added few questions, and I was not able to find the answer. So I would ask one of those questions. One thing you talked about was desireless devotion. Krishna, as a supreme personality, knows everything. But then also he enjoys different pastimes.
Also he
enjoys different pastimes.
Enjoys different pastimes. Okay.
He enjoys playing with cowards,
yes.
boys. He enjoys being with gopis. He
yes.
enjoys Nanda Maharaja, and he has different relationships.
Yes.
So, as a fallen soul, means how we could understand a concept of desireless devotions, because what I'm very new to this concept and trying to get into this. And earlier I only knew 2 things: good desires and bad desires.
And then there's desirelessness.
And then there is desirelessness. So, how do we understand that concept? Because
it's new, isn't it? It's mysterious. Were you here for the morning session?
Yeah, I was, but
Did you hear the section about mystery?
Yes.
This is one of the mysteries. I'll respond, but it's not by a sharp intellect that you can penetrate into such mysteries. So don't even try. But it's by devotion, and by hearing it awakens devotion, and then the mystery opens. The door starts to so the mystery reveals itself. Krishna reveals this. The words, I can repeat the words. Just like, different people have different ideas of what's good and bad. Good desires, bad desires. Different people have different ideas of what's a good desire and a bad desire. And so you can have long conversations about people about morality and, what's good desire, bad desire. I invite you sometime come to our New York Rath Yatra and sit at the question answer booth and listen to what New Yorkers have to ask about desires. I was at the question answer anyway. They're very expert at challenging questions. Good desire, bad desire, and they have a very colorful array of ideas of what's good and bad. And it's a nice experience. Question answer booth was a nice experience. So transcendental desire is desirelessness. Transcendental desire is love. Use Bhaktisiddhanta's, here's another mysterious phrase. There is no love in this material world. That's heavy. Meaning, there's always, I want something out of this relationship between myself and another person. I give this, I get that, and I give it the name love. I have a feeling, and that feeling is love. But in this world, the desireless condition is absent. There may be good desires, whatever, love of the father for his son, or something, something, something. The man for his country, or love of my dog, or love of mankind, or love of whatever it is. It's as long as the contact with the Supreme Pure is missing, the enjoyment of the Supreme Personality of Godhead exclusively is missing, then it's mixed. So desireless is svasukhatvam. His happiness is my happiness. But that's a desire, but that's a fully spiritual desire, or desire free from material desire. That's desirelessness. Desire is, in Prabhupada's language, desire is a concomitant factor of the soul. Wherever there's a soul, we're part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, so we're going to have qualities like the Supreme Soul in us, in a very tiny degree. He has unlimited desire for happiness. We also have a desire for happiness because we're part of Him. It's desireless when our happiness is His happiness. That's desireless. In the akama. That's beyond good and bad. Supposing Krishna has a headache. You know that pastime is described in Bhagavatam? Krishna doesn't have headaches. But Krishna had a headache. He had a headache. And there was only one thing he said that would cure his headache. And that's dust from somebody's feet. He has to put it on my head. No one would give their dust from their feet because it's sinful. They would get a bad reaction for taking the dust from their feet and put it on Krishna's head. But the gopis, they were immediately ready to take the dust from their feet. And when the messengers heard that, they said, well, aren't you afraid of the reaction that you'll get from putting the dust up? Never mind, quick, Krishna's got a headache. Anything, we'll go to hell if it just can relieve Krishna's headache. That's desirelessness. The desire of love that's unmixed with any consideration for myself. That's the statement of what desirelessness is. So it's mysterious. It sounds, nice, but is it really something that we can attain? That's another. And the answer is yes. It's our nature. Is it? Can we ever become healthy? Because there's always something. Yes, it's our nature to be healthy. You follow? Okay. Something else. Okay, well, I guess you're eager for the next kirtan. Okay, so you ready? Okay. So for now, there's another part of our presentation, and huh? You take it away. Give her the microphone. This is a meditation, audio-visual meditation.
Over the day, we heard a lot about how to chant the holy name. And it's always wonderful to see an example, because when we have an example, it becomes easy to follow. Haridas Thakur is our Namacharya. Lord Chaitanya called him as the Namacharya. And I thought it'd be nice to share these prayers of Haridas Thakur. And as you're hearing these prayers, it'll be like, I'll recite and then you can follow the second time. You can beg for Haridas Thakur's association. You can beg for his mercy. You can notice his quality of humility and dependence and his eagerness, his intention, all that we talked about during the day. And you can beg for his mercy to become determined in chanting the holy name. So these very beautiful prayers appear in Chaitanya Bhagavat in the Madhya Kanda. This is at the conclusion of Mahaprakash Leela. So I want to just read a short section. It's from the summary of chapter 10. Mahaprabhu declared that Haridas was more dear to him than his own self, and that he and Haridas belonged to the same family. On seeing the distress of Haridas, the Lord had descended from Vaikuntha with a Sudarshan chakra in his hand. But since Haridas desired auspiciousness for even his oppressors, so the Sudarshan chakra desisted, and Mahaprabhu took the beating of Haridas on his own body. After exhibiting those marks of torture on his own body, Mahaprabhu further said that he was unable to tolerate the distress of Haridas. So he incarnated immediately. Lord Krishna, who is controlled by his devotees, does not know anything except his devotees. One who has no love for the holy names of Krishna, who is so affectionate towards his devotees, is simply suffering the results of his own misfortune. On hearing the topics of the Lord's unlimited mercy, Haridas fell unconscious to the ground. Although regained his external consciousness by the words of the Lord, he became agitated and began to cry. Thus he could not see the form of the Lord. With great humility, Haridas offered prayers to Mahaprabhu and said that the most merciful Gaurasundara never abandons even an insect who remembers his lotus feet, but he destroys even an emperor who does not remember his lotus feet. In this regard, Haridas cited the examples of Draupadi, Prahlad, Yudhishthir, who feared the curse of Durvasa and Ajamil, and thus established the supremacy of Gaurasundara's affection for his surrendered devotees. After expressing his total incompetence, Haridas simply prayed to the Lord that he may develop a taste for honoring the remnants of Lord Chaitanya's servants, that this may be his only form of worship, birth after birth, and that Mahaprabhu may keep him as a dog in the house of his devotee. Mahaprabhu, who constantly resides in the heart of Haridas, then awarded Haridas the benediction of pure devotional service, devoid of offenses, against Lord Vishnu and the Vaishnavas, and declared, "Anyone who associates with Haridas for even a moment and has full faith in Haridas will certainly attain my lotus feet." It is taught in all scriptures that by hearing the glories of the devotees, one attains devotional service to Krishna. Vapa Vishwambara Prabhu Jagatira Natha Patakire Karo Kripa Padilat Mata. Vapa Vishwambara Prabhu Jagatira Natha Patakira Karo Kripa Padilat Mata. Nirguna Dhamma Sarva Jati Bahishkrita Muni ki baliba Prabhu Tamara Charita. Nirguna Dhamma Sarva Jati Bahishkrita Muni ki baliba Prabhu Tamara Charita. Dekhile pataka more parashila. Dekhile pataka more parashile snana. Muni ki baliba Prabhu tamara jnana. Dekhile patak more parashile snana. Muni ki baliba Prabhu tamara jnana. Eka satya kariyacha apanavadane. Ye jana tumara kare charana smarane. Eka satya kariyacha apanavadane. Ye jana tumara kare smarane. Kita tulya hai adi tare nahi chhada. Ihate anyata hoile narendre re pada. Kita tulya hai adi tare nahi chhada. Ihate anyata hoile narendre re pada. Epala nahi mora smarana vihina. Smarana karile matra rakhat midina. Epala nahi mora smarana vihina. Smarana karile matra rakhat midina. সভামধ্যে দ্রৌপদী করিতে বিভাসনা আনিলা পাপিষ্ঠ দুর্যোধন দুঃশাসনা সভামধ্যে দ্রৌপদী করিতে বিভাসনা আনিলা পাপিষ্ঠ দুঃশাসনা Sankate pariya Krishna tomasanarila Smarana prabhave tumi vastre praveshila Pariya Krishna tomasanarila Smarana prabhave Shila Smarana prabhave vastra hoila nanta Tathapiha na janila se sabaduranta Smarana prabhave vastra hoila nanta Tathapiha na janila se sabaduranta Konakale Parvati re dakini ragane Vidya khaite kaila tumhara smarane Konakale Parvati re dakini ragane Vidya khaite kaila tumhara smarane Smarana prabhave tumi avirbhutahana Korila sabhara sashti vaishnavitariya Smarana prabhave tumi avirbhutahana Korila sabhara sashti vaishnavitariya Hina tuma smarana vihina muni papa More tora charane sharana deha bapa Hina tuma smarana vihina muni papa More tora charane sharana deha bapa Visha sarpa agni jale pathare bandiya Pelila pralade dushta hiranya dhariya Visha sarpa agni jale pathare bandiya Pelila pralade dushta hiranya dhariya Pralada korila tora charana smarana Smarana prabhave sarva dukha vimochana Korila tora charana smarana Smarana prabhave sarva dukha vimochana Karova bangila danta karote jonasha Smarana prabhave tumi hoila prakasha Karova bangila danta karote jonasha Smarana prabhave tumi hoila prakasha Panduputra Shanarila Durvasara Bhaye Arane Pratyaksha Hoila Haya Sadaye Panduputra Shanarila Durvasara Bhaye Arane Pratyaksha Hoila Haya Sadaye Chintana hi yudhishtara hera dekha ami Ami diva muni viksha vasika katumi Chintana yudhishthira hera dikhani Ami diva muni viksha vasika katumi Avashesha ekashaka achila handite Santoshe khaila nija seva karakite Avashesha achila handite Santoshe khaila nija seva karakite Snane sabari shirau dara mahapule Shrimata sabari shi palaila dare Snane sabari shirau dara mahapule Shrimata sabari shi palaila dare Smarana prabhave pandu putre ramochana Esabakatu katora smarana karana Smarana prabhave pandu putre ramochana Esabakatu katora smarana karana Akhanda smarana dharma iha sabakara Teni chitra nahe iha sabara udhara Akhanda smarana dharma iha sabakara Teni chitra nahe iha sabara udhara Ajamila smaranera mahima para Sarva dharma hinataha vaina hiyara Ajamila smaranera mahima para Sarva dharma hinataha vaina hiyara Nuthabai putra snehe deki putra mukha Sanarila putra name narayana rupa Nuthabai putra snehe deki putra mukha Sanarila putra name narayana rupa Sesanarane sabha khandila pada Teni chitra nahe bhakta smarana sampada Sesanarane sabha khandila pada Teni chitra nahe bhakta smarana sampada Hina tora charana smarana hina mune Tatapiha prabhu more nachari vitone Hina tora charana smarana hina mune Tatapiha prabhu more Toma dekhi bare mora kona dikhara Ekabai prabhu kichu na chahibara Toma dekhi bare mora kona dikhara Ekabai prabhu kichu na chahibara Prabhu bole bala bala sakala tumhara Tomare adeya kichu nahi kamara Prabhu bole bala bala sakala tumhara Tomare adeya bale Prabhu Haridasa Muni alpa bhagya Prabhu karo bada asha Karayoga kari bale Prabhu Haridasa Muni alpa bhagya Prabhu karo bada asha Tumhara charane bhaja ye sakala dasa Tara avashesha hina hoya mora grasa Tumhara charane bhaja ye sakala dasa Tara avashesha hina hoya mora grasa Se bhajana mora ho janma janma Se avashesha mora kriya kula dharma Se bhajana mora Tumhara smarana hina papa janma mora Safala karahata shochishta diya thora Tumhara smarana hina papa janma mora Safala karahata shochishta diya thora He mora parada hina chitilaya Mahapada chaho he mohara yogyanaya He mora parada hina chitilaya Mahapada chaho he mohara yogyanaya Prabhu re nathe ramora bhapa vishwamara Rita muni mora parada kshamakara Prabhu re nathe mora bhapa vishwamara Rita muni mora parada kshamakara Sachiranandana Bapa Kripa Kara More Kukura Koriya More Rakha Bhakta Ghare Sachiranandana Bapa Kripa Kara More Kukura Koriya More Rakha Bhakta Haridasa stuti vara shune jana Avashya milibe tare Krishna prema dhana Haridasa stuti vara shune jana Avashya milibe tare Krishna prema dhana Vivachana monahe sarva shastrikaya Bhaktya jnana shunile Krishne te bhakti haya Vivachana moranahe sarva shastrakaya Bhaktya jnana shunile Mahabhakta Haridasa Thakura Jaya Jaya Haridasa Sanarane Sarva Papakshaya Mahabhakta Haridasa Thakura Jaya Haridasa Mahabhakta Haridasa Thakur Jaya Jaya Haridasa Sanarane Sarva Papakshaya Mahabhakta Haridasa Thakur Jaya Jaya Haridasa Sanarane Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Rama Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gauranga Jaya Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Jaya Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Jaya Gaura Hari Bolo Nitai Gauranga Jaya Gaura Hari Gaura 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 Hari Gaura 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 Hari Bolo Nitai 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 Gauranga 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 Jaya Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Jaya Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल, गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल।